I'm Nick, and this is our new storage server that I've been trying to put together in the Silverstone RM43. Trying is the key word here because almost everything with this has gone wrong. To be honest, that's just how it goes sometimes. But let's start off with the biggest hurdle that was a personal hurdle of mine, was choosing the CPU and motherboard combo. I've been umming and ahhing about this one for such a long time, to the point where I was considering going Sapphire Rapids because I had a 28 core sitting here, Threadripper Pro, I've got a bunch of other Threadripper stuff, and I'm like, it's just going to generate so much heat. After careful consideration, and I'm talking about like 2 months of trying to figure it out, I decommissioned one of our virtualization hosts a little while ago with the MSI D3052. This is an AM5 MATX server board. It's got IPMI built in, dual SFP28 Ethernet, so it's got 25 gig. And to be honest, it is a rock solid server board, and the CPU that was already on it was kind of perfect for it. It is the AMD EPYC 4564P. It's a 16 core, 32 threaded CPU, but the beauty of this board using the B650 chipset is you get all of the features that you get with Ryzen when it comes to power saving. So what I'd done to this configuration when I'd already built the system with the ESXi host was I'd set it to run at 35 watts in eco mode, meaning this configuration generates almost no heat whatsoever. However, the first hurdle was finding an appropriate CPU cooler. Now, this is a storage server case. The RM43 is a case that we've already checked out. I'll put the link down below in the description if you want to see the video where I go through everything. The last time I used this CPU, I did the same thing and it was rock solid, but I was using a 240mm liquid cooler and I was like, yeah, we're gonna liquid cool it, but I want this to be, I wanted to think about it less. So I went with something that I found for so cheap. It's the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 90. This little cooler here is so freaking interesting because in Australia, you can get it for $29 US, and from my testing with this AMD EPYC CPU, it's bloody brilliant. I can't believe it's only $29. It's 110mm tall, so it's perfect for a 4U case. The only thing that I wish it included was a bracket to rotate the cooler, so the cooler here could be oriented in the correct way, because this is a server motherboard, so the socket's rotated, because essentially if you're not aware of how this works, in a data center, you got a hot side of the rack and a cold side of the rack, cold front, hot back, and the air is supposed to flow one way. However, because of the design of this cooler's mounting, the cooler's rotated, so the air being pulled into the cooler comes in at a 90-degree angle, and you lose a little bit of efficiency with cooling if you're changing 90-degree angles with air. So, I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day, but yeah, didn't really have any other options. Now, the motherboard and CPU sorted, so we got that figured out. Like I said, this took way too long, and the reason is, when I start to organize these things, I ask if I can get some things, or like I try and buy stuff, and I just got let down by everyone for this project. So that's why it's way later than it should have been. But I did what I always did, and I just figured it out. It's got 96 gigs of RAM, which right now is fine. I'm probably gonna swap it out to, I'm thinking 128 gigs of ECC. It's just really expensive right now, and in Australia at least, it's just kind of hard to get ECC memory. So I'm gonna wait until I can get some, and then I'm just gonna swap the RAM out. Sometimes, like I said, guys, this thing is just taken way too long to put together. It's been insanely frustrating that I just haven't been able to finish it, to the point where I'd put aside 2 80mm fans to go in the back, and I don't even know where I put them. It's been that long. I think I probably used them for something else. I have to go and buy some more fans before we deploy this and chuck it in the rack. Yeah. It's been a journey. Not only that, we were supposed to upgrade all of our switching gear, but yeah, that just didn't end up happening either. So yeah, nothing for this went to plan at all. I had planned this to be way more than it is, and I feel like I let you guys down a bit because I was so excited because we had everything in motion, and you know, with making videos and like this kind of stuff, things fall through all the time. The amount of things that fall through that you guys don't see is insane. But you know, that's the nature of the beast. You make content on the internet, and yeah. Anyway, the next thing would be connecting the backplane to a storage controller or the motherboard, because that's what happens with these storage servers. So first of all, my initial plan was to use an LSI HBA that I already had. I have like a whole bunch of these. It's a 4-port adapter, which technically allows up to 16 drives to be connected. You can use something like this, a SAS expander, which was my original plan. But I told you guys, nothing with this went to plan. Here's what happened next. So when I'd initially picked out how I wanted to configure this system, I bought all of the cables, and I bought them from China because I couldn't get them in Australia at the time. I actually still can't get the cables here. I was trying to get an entire set of SFF 8463 cables to run throughout. The thing is, it's very hard for me to find them both with the same connector on both ends, because the HBA that I use uses that. The backplane is 8463 as well. So that was the first thing. I ordered some cables from China, and I let them sit on the shelf until I was going to start filming this video. I didn't even open the box. And then when I got to open them, I found out that they'd sent me the wrong cables. Instead of sending straight through ones from the ones that I ordered, they sent me ones with one side having a 90-degree angle. Now you might be thinking, oh, a 90-degree angle's fine, you could make that work. Actually, you can't, because this connector faces towards the PCB of both the backplane and the SAS expander that I wanted to use. So look, I can't even plug it in here at all. If I were to try, I would not only damage the cable, but I would damage the SAS expander. So that idea had to go right out the window, and I came up with a little bit of a hacky solution. The HBA that I use has these SAS connectors right on the end of the card, so the right angle cables plugging in to the HBA is fine. I didn't really have an issue with those being connected. The other side of the cable has the straight connector, which plugs into the backplane just fine. But that means I can only plug in 16 drives. Well, that didn't end up being a problem because I had an 8463 to 4-way SATA splitter, and I connected them up, so I have a total of, if I really wanted to, 20 spinning Rust drives or SSDs in the front bays. Now you might be thinking, Nick, dude, there's 24 bays. Well, yeah, there is. However, Silverstone sent over something that is super freaking interesting for this. It's a new NVMe backplane, which will support 4 drives for this case and other cases that use the same basis for this backplane here. It's called the RAC BP304N. It's a PCIe NVMe backplane, which will allow you to install U.2 drives straight in the front. So I thought, great, that's exactly what we're going to do, and that's what we're going to do for this build. We're going to use NVMe drives. Well, I'm going to use M.2 SSDs in these adapters, and we're going to find out if they work. We haven't got that far yet because there was something else. With this NVMe backplane, how do you connect all the drives up to your motherboard? This is a pretty simple solution. The backplane itself uses dual 8654 8i connectors, which means it's got 16 PCIe lanes connected directly into the backplane. You use 2 sets of 8654 8i to 4i cables, which basically splits out the 8-lane connector into 2 4-lane connectors, and then you get this little ditty from Amazon. It's like a couple of dollars. All it is a by 16 PCIe card that drops straight into a by 16 slot on a board like this. I'm using the by 16 slot for it. And essentially the way this works is you turn on bifurcation in the BIOS and it splits it out like it would if you're using a storage card directly on the motherboard itself. And the reason why I decided to do it all this way was pretty simple. When it comes to changing drives, especially in a storage card in a server, because this is going to be in a rack with our other storage servers, I didn't want to have to open the machine to change out any of the M.2 drives. So having them on the front here is just way easier. As well as that, this is going to annoy people, but I've decided that the front 4 bays, which are the bottom ones here, as you saw when I installed the backplane, they're going to be used as the cache drives. The main reason is because this is an M-ATX board and because of the nature of this board and what it's really designed to do, it's only got a single M.2 slot. So I can't use a lot of cache drives for everything. But if I have 4 M.2 drives in the system at the front, I can swap them out. And especially if it's a cache drive, I can disconnect the cache drive. If it's like a metadata VDEV, I can then like have it right there as well. If I'm using a log VDEV or any of the special VDEV types, I can just have them straight on the front here without having to extract more from this case. Now, the other thing is you might be wondering, why didn't you just use a bigger motherboard? Like the case is huge. Well, like I said, guys, it's all about efficiency, especially because these storage servers live in our apartment. I don't want them generating heaps of noise and heat. So this solution is great, especially with platforms like Threadripper Pro or Intel Xeon stuff, because I literally have setups for all of it. I've got a previous gen WRX80 board with a 32 core Threadripper Pro with 256 gigs of RAM that would have been perfect for this, but realistically, this system, along with all of our other storage servers, don't do anything other than be storage servers. There's no containers running on them. They don't run virtual machines. They don't require Proxmox. They don't need things like Unraid. They don't need anything other than TrueNAS. That's all they do, is they store files. I get the stuff that we're working on, and then they sit in the box. They have all of their replication tasks set up, all of their cloud sync stuff set up, and that's all they do. They're just workhorses that run 24/7, and if I need to access something, there they are, ready to go at all times. This server is kind of one of those ones where I had to compromise a little bit. So I reached out to Seagate and they're like, hey, we'll send you some drives. We've got a stack of 10 terabyte drives we can send you. So they sent 12 drives over. Samsung sent us a bunch of SSDs for some other projects that I had some drives left over. So I'm going to put those in. And then obviously I'm going to use these NVMe M.2 adapter things from Amazon that are like 10 bucks each or whatever they are. And that'll get us to 20 drives. So we'll have 4 drive bays spare. And the reasoning behind that is Seagate has said that they're going to send us some of their new 30 terabyte drives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy everything from this lot of drives here, like these spinning Rust drives. When we get the new 30 terabyte drives, there'll be 4 of them. There'll be enough capacity. Well, if you do the math, the capacity is exactly the same as, as 12 of these drives, but 4 drives. So I'll move the pools over, and then we'll replace all of the drives in this with 30 terabyte drives. That's a lot of storage, but that's not even a fraction of how much we actually have. But this will be like the new storage server that we use for everything. And the greatest thing is, the server's quiet. However, that doesn't solve one of the other outlying things with this. How are we going to boot this system? I have another pretty elegant solution for this. This thing is called a SATA DOM or a SATA DOM, depending on where you live in the world. This is a disk-on module. Essentially, this is 64 gigs directly plugged into your SATA port on your motherboard, and then it powers off your motherboard if your motherboard supports it. However, none of this went to plan. So first of all, I've had this SATA DOM sitting here for a while, and I used to use these in the data center a lot for hypervisors and hosts because you just plug them into the board, boot them up, good to go, swap them out if something goes wrong. It's actually kind of easier than using a USB stick because of the speed and the capacity. Well, it was back in my day anyway. Let's not go into that, I'm an old guy. The SATA DOM that I had left over from back in the day, believe it or not, is a 64 gig SATA DOM with the power cable connected. Now this power cable here typically would plug into, let's say, an HP board. I think this is the connector that I got it from, was like an HP server board. And this motherboard does have SATA DOM power, but when I went to plug it in, I realized that the power connector from the HP server that I'd pulled this from years ago was like a 3-pin connector. So I was like, cool, I'll just get a pair of side cutters and slice the side of the connector off so it fits in. I plugged it in and the SATA DOM didn't power up. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? It turns out that even though the connector was oriented the right way, the polarity on the board wasn't. I depinned the connector, repinned it, plugged it in, and the SATA DOM came alive. Crisis averted, right? Because I thought maybe what would happen was, because I was messing around with this like a complete idiot and not taking the hardware and the voltage into account, that, I mean, you could potentially fry the motherboard, but it's okay. It all worked out. Don't do what I did. Don't be an idiot. Buy the right cable. But because this had taken so long as it was, I just had enough. I was like, this has just got to work. I've got to figure it out. So yeah, it works. So we have a SATA DOM installed on the board. So that's the way it boots. Now, lastly, before we start populating this with drives and we go through some of the configuration, because to be honest, at the point of filming this, none of that is done yet. These drives haven't even been put in here. There was one last thing. All of these backplanes for these server cases use Molex power. And in the last video, I said to you guys, I'm using Molex splitters. I'm using 3-way Molex splitters. I've got 4 of them, which equals 12 Molex power connectors. It's okay to do that. You can split Molex power. It's not going to be a problem whatsoever, especially if you split the power over multiple backplanes and not just into a single backplane. It'll distribute the power nice and evenly. Hindsight's 2020. Because what happened was, I wish I'd filmed this, because when it comes to like testing, I'll test everything off camera when it comes to this stuff, so we know the video is going to go to plan most of the time. That's the secret with every YouTuber. Don't let them lie to you. I was like, yeah, we'll test it up, we'll fire it up. And this is without any drives installed, because like I said, the drives haven't been installed. I just wanted to see if it all powered up. That Molex splitter that I said would be fine, and these Molex splitters that I said would be fine, the cables started to just deteriorate after plugging them in. Absolute just trash. They all just broke. And then this one actually caught fire. I wish I'd filmed it, but I'd powered it up and I smelled something funny. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, maybe it's like sometimes, you know, new fans and servers have like a smell because the RPM's so high. And you're like, oh, okay, it just smells like that. I'm like, oh, it looks a little bit smokier in here than usual. And then I was like, okay, whatever. So I just powered the system down. I was like, oh, I'll have a look around. I couldn't see anything, powered it back up. And then this wire was glowing orange, like the filament in a light bulb. And I'm like, okay, yep, that's a problem. So yeah, this cable quite literally caught on fire. So that's the next thing. Even smelling, it just smells like burnt plastic. So yeah, don't buy those cables. Don't listen to what I said when we covered this case initially. Get some proper power cables, and that's what I did for this. I've got them all connected directly into the power supply now, all 12 of them. Yeah. And all of that leads us to now. And by now, I mean a whole week later, because like I've said from the beginning of this video, this project has gone on for way too long. I guess I forgot to mention the last thing about having NVMe storage in this server and the way that I would do it, considering we put the backplane in, but I didn't really talk about how NVMe drives connect to the backplane. So basically, there are these cheap little 2.5-inch drive enclosures that convert NVMe M.2 drives to the U.2 connector. And this is, I guess I would call this an interposer card. That's essentially it. All right, I guess it's time to test to see if the thing works. Now I know the OS and the whole system runs. I don't know if the backplane still works after the little fire that I had. So yeah, let's find that out together. And I know I mentioned earlier in the video that, you know, we test everything, and every YouTuber who says they don't does. Well, this time I really haven't tested it. I haven't had time. The time's now. I can't lie and say that I'm not a little bit nervous about this not working, because I just don't know what the story is. But we'll start off by putting in the M.2 drives in the bottom slots, because early in the video you would have seen that I put the backplane for the NVMe in the bottom only. These drive sleds that are still in here are empty, and the rest will be populated. Guys, we've been let down so much with this one build. It's taken us over 2 months to get to this point in time. So we'll see what happens. I'm a little bit bummed out, I'm not gonna lie. All right, now we'll put in some 2.5-inch SATA SSDs above those, so then we know for sure that they're all in there. There's a lot of drives to load in by hand. Maybe this is therapeutic for you guys, but for me, I'm so used to doing this stuff that, I don't know, I kind of don't like doing this, because, I don't know, oh, sometimes it doesn't feel good when you slide it in like that. Oh man, this is so many drives. I'm beginning to get a bit of a workout. What is the time now? At 10:30 in the morning, I've already done my 10,000 steps for the day just by loading drives in. Actually, that's not even a joke. I need to take all the spinning rust drives back out because it is too heavy to transport with all the drives in it. That's right, ladies and gents. I never transport storage servers with drives in them. Typically, if it's like a massive, massive array, all the drives would be pulled out and labeled and carefully transported. It's just something I just don't like to do. Right? Deal with it. If you don't like it, that's fine. Alrighty, here we go. Well, that's the cat yelling. You can see we've got IPMI already on, so the system has power, but the BMC is powered up. Let's see what happens. You can see I've already used this board in the IPMI. It's had 122 days of uptime, yeah, before I decommissioned it and moved on, because you know how it goes. Well, let's power it on. I'm not even going to use the power button. Let's just see what happens. There we go. It's very quiet. I've built the server to be relatively quiet. It's powering up. Systems like this will take about 3 to 5 minutes to post because of all of the things that it does when it boots up. So far, so good. Things are looking promising to start off with. We've got power on all of the spinning rust and 2.5-inch SSDs. There is power on the bottom back plane here, but the lights are a little dimmer. I think it's because the back plane itself is physically different and the LEDs are probably just not as bright on the NVMe M.2 back plane here. All the drives are doing their little checks now. I think the back plane might be fine. I think the fire, there we go, MSI logo. Finally, that was, I think, an 11-minute post. It took 11 minutes to get here. Welcome to Grub. The great thing about IPMI, ladies and gents, is I can interact with this too. So it's taken a long time to bring up the bootloader. I don't like that. It kind of freaks me out. Okay, it's doing something. I think it just skipped the bootloader completely. Error unknown device, love that. Let's see. Oh no. No, it's booting. Oh my, why did it do that? Oh, that scared me for a second. It looks as though all of the spinning disks have been detected. I will have a look at what's going on with NVMe in a moment, but yeah, we'll just little bit. There we go. We've got a resolution change, which means we are bringing up the middleware. It's trying to import some ZFS pools. I've probably had some on the M.2s, to be fair. The other drives haven't been used for anything other than one video that we did with that Acer Store NAS. So 6 of the drives got used in that. But I guess it'll just have a file system and we can just nuke that whole file system, it won't matter. This is very painful, guys, for you and for me. Don't worry. It's about to drop to shell. Let's take a look and see what the dealio is then. Alrighty, my friends, moment of truth. We're in the TrueNAS interface. And I'm going to click disks, and with a bit of luck, everything is detected by the looks. Yeah, everything is detected. We'll sort by disk size. So we've got 4 NVMe M.2 drives with those U.2 adapters detected. We've got 4 4TB 2.5-inch SSDs detected, and we have 12 10TB drives detected. So at the end of it, yeah, nothing really went wrong with the build. The fire didn't really affect anything. And we also have that SATA DOM right here at the top. But there is one thing that I wanted to do. But before we do all of that, I want to put this in the rack, because now that I know that it's all detected on the bench, we've got to put it in its permanent home. Well, semi-permanent. Ladies and gents, that is our rack, and this one is just for storage servers. I'll give you a bit of a rundown of what's in this rack. So first of all, we have this, it's pretty average, it's not a manual switch. It's got 8 SFP 10 gig ports. You can see I'm using 6. This is going to be replaced. It's also got 8 10 gig RJ45 ports, so it's a 16 port 10 gig switch, but like I said, this is getting removed. This was supposed to get changed with this video, but I keep telling you guys, I'm getting let down. It was supposed to be a Ubiquiti switch. Well, it's actually supposed to be 2 Ubiquiti switches here. I've bought Ubiquiti switches to replace it with. I didn't get anything from Ubiquiti for this, which is unfortunate, but you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. You can see that our 3D printed MS01 and MSA2 setup is in this rack too, because this is the hypervisors that are running like all the virtual machines and stuff that we use for all the stuff. The 3D printed storage server that I had in the rack in my office, I moved into here. Turns out I didn't really need Thunderbolt, and this is very, very quick over the network still with 2 10 gig interfaces. We also have the new storage server, which is not all the way at the bottom of the rack. We've got to still push that one in. It's on the rails, we'll clip that in. And then I've got another 16 bay storage server at the bottom that has a bunch of cold storage stuff, but I need to load this full of drives so we can boot it up and we can do all the things. So like I mentioned earlier, I always unload all of the drives when I'm doing moving of servers and stuff like that. Again, you get to watch me load drives up. Power it all up. Now the rack doesn't usually sit in this location. It's a 15 RU rack on wheels, and it actually rolls away into another corner, but when I do stuff on it, I roll it out and then I can move it around. Going back to this switch setup, I can't do link aggregation or anything fun with this. I can't bond anything. There's literally nothing fun going on with this switch, which is why I'm going to change it. I've got a single 10 gig link that comes into the switch here. I'm in the process of rewiring our house to add dual 10 gig links to all the switches that require it around the house. So that's just taken, it's just taken time, because, you know, it's just me who runs cables and terminates them. I don't have an electrician to do it. I'm just doing it all myself, and there's almost no room. So I have to use a camera to go on the ceiling to move the cables around, all that stuff. It's just a lot of work. Made the first post beeps. And again, like, we've got basically 2 10 gig links from each machine in this rack that do all of the things, right? Both of these storage servers run the same motherboard. They both have dual 25 gig adapters, but I don't have 25 gig networking equipment yet. The reason why this is built this way is, guys, we live in an apartment, right? And because we live in an apartment, I don't want this stuff to generate heaps of heat and noise. because it'll heat the whole apartment up and it's loud and it's annoying, and I can't have that. But all of this stuff needs to be on all the time because we have other things that run in here which I won't talk about because yeah, a lot of our other stuff runs in this rack. But this is not the only rack we have, as I've already mentioned. We have multiple racks. I also really want to rewire all of the networking in this too, but again, I can't do that until the switches that I have purchased arrive, and they just haven't got here yet. Like I said, 2 months on this already, and I'm just kind of over it. Here's the final hardware configuration for this system. So you can see here the AMD EPYC 4564P 16 core. We've got the CPU running at around about 40 degrees idle with that tiny little Thermalright cooler. We've got 96 gigs of RAM. We've got our dual Ethernet interfaces. You can see they're both 10 gig direct attached copper. Obviously these adapters are 25 gig, but if you're connecting it to a 10 gig switch, they're going to run at 10 gig. There's another handy tool that I wanted to show you guys. This is not a free tool, but you can get a trial license to see if it's something that you want to use. And this is only useful if you've got multiple storage servers. And because I do, I got myself a trial license and I've been playing around with this, but it's called TrueCommand. This is only also if you have a TrueNAS fleet. And the way this works is you can have all of your TrueNAS machines, all of your storage servers in a single dashboard, so you can manage all the replication tasks, and basically you can do everything from one central location. How this works is you'll need to have a machine on your network that can host Docker containers, and you basically just bring up this Docker container and you add all of your storage servers in here. So we'll just walk you through this really quickly. The reason why I like this is because I find it interesting to be able to manage things from a centralized location. So the home layout, this is basically showing you all of your storage servers that you've got connected. I've just connected 3 here. I have 3 other servers, and I'm just using this as a bit of an example because these are the machines in the rack that I showed already. You can see there's 110 terabytes on the new system. There's 24 terabytes on that SSD system that we built a couple weeks ago. And then on our cold storage, there's about 154 terabytes of storage. And what's good about this is it will show you alerts from all the machines. It'll show you the usage for all of the pools. It'll show you all of the network shares connected. It'll show you the cloud sync tasks, especially if you've got stuff connected with Google Drive, and basically anything that you need to do to manage all of these in a central location. How to add a server can be done in one of 2 ways. First of all, when you add the system, you use the host name, the port, give it a nickname, and you can either enable the root account on each of the storage servers, which to be honest is something that I do because it makes sense for our setup. It doesn't make sense for every setup, but you can then create an API key with any user account on the TrueNAS machine that has some type of root level access to allow you to control each of the machines. And that's it. If you wanted to use something like this, I think the pricing can be a bit steep, but it's like $199 for 100 drives per year. The trial license, which is a 60-day license, will let you have infinite drives for 60 days to see if it's something that you'd want to use. The only reason why I'm mentioning this is, again, for me personally, I like this kind of stuff because if you've got multiple servers, you have a central location to audit everything and to run your reports and to also set up all of your replication and backup tasks. It's easier than having to log into each machine individually. I don't know if it's worth it, to be honest, but yeah, like I said, I think it's really cool. Definitely worth looking at. I'll put a link to TrueCommand down below if it's something you're interested in, or maybe I'll just make something myself that can do all of this. Who knows? The truth is, if I made it myself, I'd make it free. Maybe that's a side project. There is one thing that I've been curious about with this whole setup, and that is how fast is that NVMe backplane really? Because I'm just not going to know unless I test it. So let's build a pool in a Stripe just so we can figure out what that speed looks like. First of all, we want to create a pool. I'm going to just create a straight up RAID 0 stripe because I'm very curious about this. So we'll just call it NVMe test. And we'll say, hey, we want it to be a straight up stripe. We're going to select the disk size, which is the size of the NVMe M.2s. We're going to go width. We're going to go 4 and create a single VDEV and save and go. And that's it. Let's create the pool and hope it doesn't cry at the fact that we're just creating this very, very temporary RAID 0 setup. Right, now we need to create a data set so we can see how fast it is. We want to click on the VDEV. We're then going to click add a data set. We're going to call this one test. We're not going to set any parameters. We're going to hit save. Right now we have a whole data set ready to go to let her rip. So how fast does it go? So this is an SSH session connected directly to the storage server. So I'm not doing this over the network. This is right on the box. We'll first do a read test. We'll let her rip. This one will run for a minute and then we'll just wait for the results so we can see what that is. Already you can see that when it started, it's around 6,500 megs a second, which is insanely fast. Well, it is fast for this because the truth is with the drives in here, they're PCIe Gen 3 drives. So 6.5 gigasecond essentially on PCIe Gen 3 drives is very, very, very quick. But this card will support PCIe Gen 4 drives and this backplane does PCIe Gen 5 drives, but I don't have Gen 5 set up for this. So Gen 4 will be just fine. Now that that's complete, the magic numbers are here. This is very, very impressive. Very, very fast. But I can tell you for a fact that the write tests will not be as fast because that's just how these drives are. All right, let's let the write test rip. Here we go. It's doing about 4.5 gigasecond, which is still incredibly fast. I suspect that the final result will be a little bit lower. Here are the magic numbers here, about 4,500 megs a second or about 4 and a bit gigabytes per second. That's awesome. Lastly, maybe one of the most important tests of all, it's the random read and write test. This one is almost real world, but you know, these are synthetic tests, but just, you know, we want to see what the numbers look like. So let's let it rip for a minute. The random read and write tests are looking to be around about 80 meg a second, which is, it's not terrible, guys. It's really not that bad. It's much faster than if we were to do this over the network, but you know, that's a whole nother story for another day, because after 2.5 months of me wanting to use this backplane in this server, I finally know what the performance of it's like with PCIe Gen 3 drives. I suppose you're probably going to guess what I'm going to be doing next. But not in this video. As for the rest of the configuration here, I haven't decided how I'm going to set the storage pools up at this point in time. The main reason is I just haven't had time to think about it yet. And because this is additional storage and I'm going to be moving a whole bunch of other pools from other servers around to this one so I can migrate stuff off of those, I just haven't got around to figuring that out yet. And yeah, that's just how it goes with storage that you're actually going to use sometimes. You plan to build the whole system out, but what you end up putting on it once is all said and done is going to be completely different. And that's the story here. That's the case here. But I do have plans for this, and there will possibly be another video when I've got the rest of the drives for this server. What's in there now is temporary. It's enough hardware for me to show you the Silverstone case because, to be honest, I was super excited about it. And like I've said about 100 times in this video, a lot of the stuff that I had lined up for this as a whole build series fell through, and a whole bunch of letdowns happened. So, you know, that's life at the end of the day. What an absolute ride all of that was. I guess it doesn't really translate to video, the time things take and how long this whole process took. What you saw was a combination of about a week and a half to 2 weeks of filming intermittently. And because I always wear the same kind of clothes, it's really hard to tell when I shot things. But yeah, I started filming this the start of the week before. And obviously the whole process with getting all the hardware and everything started about 2.5 months ago. I don't want to complain in the video and make it sound like I'm being entitled or whatnot, but essentially what had happened was a bunch of companies had made promises to us that they would send us things for this, and then when I would follow up, I just didn't hear back from them. And that kind of delayed the whole thing, because for me, I don't like things sitting too long because I get anxious about things that I need to finish. And the fact that some companies just didn't get back to me after they said they'd already support this, yeah, that was just a bit disappointing to me. I know that I shouldn't really rely on that, and that's on me, but the reality is if someone says something to me and they're gonna do something, then I usually take their word for it, but lesson learned. Next time I'll just do what I usually do and just sort it all out on my own. But I think this server is pretty interesting, especially that NVMe storage. I'd love to get a couple more of those backplanes in a smaller server, let's say like a 3U enclosure with less drive bays, but actually create a bit of density so you can have the high-speed NVMe storage and whatnot. But again, the major problem I see with stuff in a home lab, especially for me if you live in an apartment, is thermals and noise. It is always a consideration when you're building servers for your home lab use. Now, the setup that we've got here is not really a home lab, it's more of a production setup, but it can be considered home lab because it's technically a lab in a home, I guess, I don't know. But let us know what you guys think. I know there'll be a lot of people out there who don't agree with the choices that I make when it comes to this stuff, but as a bit of a primer, in case you didn't know, I've got a long history of working in the data center. And when you're working at that type of scale and you try and kind of keep your tool shop, so to speak, at home doing this stuff, you have to make a lot of compromises. In the data center, when it comes to heat and noise, the data center is a very cool place, and if it's too loud, put some earmuffs on. But at home, where we don't have that luxury, then there has to be some type of compromise. And our apartment isn't huge. We work out of our apartment. We own the place, which is actually kind of a blessing because it means we can do certain things like running new cables in the roof and putting new outlets in the walls, and I've got a patch panel that I'm working on and stuff as well. So I'm looking at trying to do a network upgrade video in the near future. If that is something you want to see, let me know, because the way that I'm doing it is kind of interesting. Well, I'll just give you a quick rundown. Basically, anywhere there's a 10 gig termination currently, I'm putting in another cable to run 20 gig. I can't do fiber, unfortunately, because of the small and tight spaces in the roof. I would most likely damage fiber, but Cat 6 and Cat 6A is fine. I can be a bit rougher with it, but fiber, if you can't see where you're running it, it can be a little bit of a problem. I'm basically using an endoscope with 10 meters of cable on the endoscope to run everything, and then I'm like using a bunch of pull cords and all the stuff that all of you would usually do to run cables through conduit and walls and all that stuff. But it is very difficult when it's so tightly packed in there anyway. And sometimes I push that endoscope through the wall and it gets stuck on something, and I can see when it's getting stuck, and I'm like, man, why have they cut such a small hole in these metal studs that they use in the walls here? That I'm like, oh, do I just cut a hole in the wall and just jam my hand in there and just start doing stuff and then put some patch? But no. Well, yeah, it's just gonna take some time, but if it's something you want to see, please let me know, because I do love doing projects like this. I like the projects that are grand and take time, and that kind of leads me into another project that we showed you at the start of this year, and that was the one at A1 Auto House, which is the tuning workshop where one of my best mates owns it and runs it and whatnot. We're almost finished with that setup. That one's taken us about 9 months to get it to the point where it's like really good. It's got like key fob entries, completely unified, Wi-Fi everywhere. We've run fiber through the place as well to link the back and the front of the place up. Like, it's really, really cool. So yeah, we'll be coming back to that one shortly, because we've got the most insane Unify Protect setup and the Unify Access setup for that one. It's so sick. Yeah. Whew. Time is irrelevant. This has just taken so long, but I love it, guys. I really, really love these kind of videos. And the fact that I know this video is probably going to go for 45 minutes is also fine. Maybe you'll sit here and watch it. Maybe I won't put chapters on it. Who knows? Just enjoy the ride as I've enjoyed the ride with you guys. Thanks for watching.